Welcome, fellow residents. Welcome to our speaker. If you have one of these on you, near you, around you, you know what to do. Please either mute it or turn it off. And I think everyone does know our other rule, which is if you want to ask a question, please wait until someone brings you a microphone, and the questions are being recorded. Some here in the room may remember our speaker from last year, who came to us as a retired senior executive for the CIA. And the topic she talked to us on was about the role that we play, the role Africa plays in our policy. She has a new job now. She is an executive vice president at the Pentagon Federal Credit Union, and I had to write this down, for enterprise data, artificial intelligence, and programs. That alone is worthy of being a speaker for Saturday Morning Live. But instead, we're going to have a story that I know we want to hear, and I think she's quite willing to tell us. We gave it the title, Growing Up Palestinian. But think a little bit about where this story will start to where it has now moved to the CIA, security clearances, and artificial intelligence. I think this is a special and a deeply personal story. Eman, please welcome to the podium.
Thank you so much. So listening to you, let me make sure my phone is silenced. I apologize. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here again. It is such a pleasure, such an honor. When I came and talked last time about Africa, it was very much a geopolitical discussion. And how I think I touched briefly about how I ended up at the Central Intelligence Agency at the CIA. I don't have a traditional path of coming into this country other than marriage, which we'll talk about a little bit, but I really want to share my personal story. I've only shared this personal story twice before. One with when I was in London with my British partners. And the other time was after I retired from the agency with a group of intelligence officers. My whole career at the agency, I did not share the story. And I don't know why. To be honest, I didn't know whether I just got busy, work is thrown at us. It was after 9/11. And we had a mission to accomplish, then focus on where I came from. But now it's time, and I'm honored, third time is a charm, that I'm sharing this story with all of you. And it's a personal account. No politics, I don't want to touch on any, or if you have questions, happy to go there. But those are my personal views based on my personal experience. I really want this to be a conversation. I was telling John as we're walking over here, no questions are off limits. If I don't know the answer, I didn't experience it, I will tell you. If you have further questions, happy to address them and happy to talk about them. Deal? Do we have a deal? Honest, open conversation, personal account. Okay, cool. So that's something I don't do nowadays, but I was born in 1968. So, right? Secret. Okay. Don't tell PenFed. But I was born to a Palestinian father and an Egyptian mother. My dad is originally from Jaffa, born before 1948, before the establishment of the State of Israel. And they were, again, please, they were removed from their homes. And they had to go, my dad was 8 at the time, and they had to go and settle somewhere else, which they went to Gaza. A lot of people didn't know Gaza at that time. But now there's a lot more awareness and we see what's going on in Gaza. My personal opinion is what's the geopolitical aspect of where Gaza sits. The terrain is what is causing a lot of the issues that have been going, that kind of percolated over the last few years. It's been a type of space where nobody really owned it. So when my dad remembers when there were British police, when the British military was in Gaza, because at that point, left over from the British mandate, that was still being controlled by the British military. Then the British military said, well, we're going to turn it over to the Egyptian government just because of proximity, geographically close to Egypt. The Egyptian government came in and said, which is a pet peeve of mine, we're not going to treat you as Egyptians because you are actually Palestinians. You're not from Egypt. We're going to call you refugees. We are not going to give you a passport. We're going to give you a travel document, which I later nicknamed in life a trouble document, because when you're not a citizen of any country, nobody wants to let you in their country. When you have that label on you, refugee, nobody wants you. You have zero rights in the entire world. You don't have rights to education. You don't have rights to healthcare, because we're just there. My mom, 100% Egyptian. She can track her ancestry to, and she's a very strong woman, by the way. My mom turns 90 this year. And I was like counting the number of wars that she has lived through. It's amazing. And remembering all the bombings on Cairo and stuff, different story, different time. If you want me back, we'll happy to talk about that part of history. But growing up in Kuwait, I was very grateful. And as a kid, you just don't know. You're not aware of that political, what is going on, that political situation that you're born into. Was very glad that we were, at the time, we had residency in Kuwait because my dad worked for a hospital. He was a hospital administrator. Kuwait, so remember, I was born late 60s. Kuwait got its independence as a country in 1961. So Kuwait was welcoming of anybody who would come and build this country up, build the infrastructure, build the hospitals. My dad, when he was in Gaza, he couldn't, again, go get any degree. There was only one thing going, which was a missionary Baptist hospital, where they trained locals in Gaza to be doctors, nurses, hospital administrators. So what did my dad become? A hospital administrator. And when Kuwait was opening up as a country, they let him in with his brother, my uncle. And they were given residency, not citizenship, residency, which means if he loses his job, his employment in Kuwait, he basically is thrown at the border and becomes back with no roof over our head. So we knew that growing up. We knew that we're not welcome. We knew that our entire existence in Kuwait depended on my dad's job. And then we had another thing, unfortunately, going against us, is we're such a minority in that we are Palestinian Christians, which is unheard of, right? A lot of people, I mean, I still get Arabs who tell me, oh, you converted from Islam? I'm like, no, we're Christians. And they don't even know that they're Palestinian Christians. We're like 5%, maybe. And now with the migration, a lot of Palestinians leaving, they're even less who are actually left there in that region. So went to school. Kuwait was kind enough for us. I'm a middle child. I have an older sister that is 11 months older than me. And now that I have a child, I'm like, my poor mom. I don't know how she did that 11 months difference. And I have a younger sister, a year and a half younger than me. We had a good, safe childhood, or what I thought was safe. But at least we had an education. And I can't tell you how much that resonated with me about the importance of education. Because I think what got me where I'm at right now is that foundation, that education, that importance of education. Even as a woman, at that time, things have changed in the Middle East. At that time, to be given a chance to study, to reason, to question, which in general in the Middle East is not. Back then, you're not allowed to think a lot, especially when it comes to any political issues. So you stay in your lane just because of I don't know how to refer to it, but you never say anything against the government. That was very well known. So my mom, a nurse, and I told you, remember, my mom is a very strong woman. So the minute the 3 girls, her daughters, were school age, she's like, I need to get to work and I need to start driving. I mean, serious, my mom is such a rebel. And even when women at the time, it wasn't very popular for them to drive in Kuwait. So my mom got a driver's license to get a job as a nurse in a British school, when British schools were not very common back then. We're talking 70s. So guess what mom does next? You're all going to be Western educated, all 3 girls. And it was very expensive. And my parents sacrificed so much to give us that. And back then, all I could think of is, oh my gosh, I'm learning a foreign language. It's like, and my mom, what she did, in the summer before we got into that school, she would bring books in English, and she's like, read. And I'm like, I don't understand this. It was a bit of a struggle, but now it's like being bilingual later on in life serves me very well. So we study, go to British schools, great education, taught to think differently, taught to reason, opened up our minds to something different. We weren't very focused on the fact that we're refugees. So even though my mom is Egyptian, we could only go visit our family in Egypt, my mom's side. I only saw my grandmother on my mom's side once. Because Egypt, that gave us this travel document, wouldn't let us in, even though my mom's Egyptian, because we're Palestinians. Now that I'm a mother and I have my son who is my world, I can't even imagine how that made my mom feel. It gets even worse before it gets better. So we know we can't go to Egypt except with special permission. My mom is 100% Egyptian. She could go to Egypt, but the Middle East is very much you follow your dad. So because my dad is Palestinian and he was a refugee, automatically I'm Palestinian and a refugee, which is fine. My poor mom, 100% Egyptian, didn't throw anything in the mix from a government perspective, from an identity perspective. We were not even seen as half Egyptians. So interesting story, when I met my husband, he's like, where are you from? The introduction, and that was an interesting story. We'll get to that. But he's like, why don't you tell people you're half Egyptian? I'm like, because it doesn't matter. I am not allowed, even by the Egyptian government, to claim that half of me. Because in that culture, you follow your dad. And also being Christians and being refugees, Egypt wanted nothing to do with us, which kind of caused a lot of issues later on. So, finished high school, life is good. I finished high school in '84. I actually, graduated from high school very early. I was 15. Remember that mom giving us books in the summer? They kept pushing. My dad just knew it. He would always say, you have to work hard because you're stateless. You have to kind of prove yourself because that's the only thing is going to be good for you is your education. As a child, as a teenager, hated it, right? Who wants to stay home and work? Who wants to stay home and study when everybody else is going out and kids our age? The only outing we could have was just going to church. And we had because it's a very predominantly Islamic country, we only had a very, very small church in Kuwait. Those were the youth that we were able to mix with. So had to get, this is the other thing, is because of the standards of education And because we don't have a passport, I could not, to get education, I only had one choice. Either get into Kuwait University, or I'm not gonna get into a college degree. And with Kuwait University, Kuwait favored Kuwaitis. And here, coming back here in the States, people here would call it discrimination. So over there, it was a known fact of life. I had to get, for example, all A's in my high school. If I got 1B, it meant I couldn't get into Kuwait universities. Kuwaitis had a different standard. They could get C's and D's, and they could still go to Kuwait University. Here in the States, we call this discrimination. Over there, they call it nationalism, helping their citizens move forward. And the funny thing is, this is where being here in the States, it kind of opened my eyes. And I'm like, I dealt with this as a fact of life, and it was okay. Here in the States, I'm like, oh my gosh, like not only double standards, right? It's like that compared to our definition of discrimination, that's huge discrimination. But over there, it was a way of life. And the interesting thing is, it even expanded beyond certain education, what you could get and what you couldn't. It expanded to certain jobs. We knew we would never be in managerial positions because we're Palestinian refugees. Basically, if you think of it, it's taking every power, every decision-making, every capability that you would have to grow as a human. Medical services. Towards the end of my time in Kuwait, medical services were free for Kuwaiti citizens. They were not free for others. Even though my dad worked in a hospital, but that was still the case. So, but you know what? At that point, life was still good. And I still, to this day, I love Kuwait. I still listen to Kuwaiti music. My husband doesn't understand why, but I'm like, but it's what I grew up with. So I'm not a Kuwaiti. Here I am, I'm not a Kuwaiti, even though born, raised, lived in Kuwait. I'm not Egyptian, even though my dad was always working. Mom had the similar schedule to us being a school nurse, my mom. But I couldn't even claim that I was anything close to my mom, that she's Egyptian. And that manifested itself even more when Kuwait was invaded. So get into Kuwait University, got all A's to get into Kuwait University. And remember the whole thing with my parents pushing, education is so important. So I graduated valedictorian of Kuwait University. And I have a picture, actually, we're remodeling a kitchen right now, which is a huge disaster, but we're ending up getting rid of a lot of stuff in our house. And I saw this big picture, I should have brought it with me, where the Emir of Kuwait back then handed me my diploma because I was valedictorian. It was such an honor, but again, I didn't think much of it because all I know is stay the focus, you need that degree. Very grateful that I just got that education that would open my mind up. And I'm very proud of that degree. I had a great time, my bachelor's degree at Kuwait University. Now, they played it down because I'm not a Kuwaiti. That is not for them. That is for me to celebrate, because that's what you see. A lot of times when people are trying to put you in a box, they take that joy of an accomplishment out of you. And it took me a long time to claim that joy back, because we were conditioned. We were conditioned that we're stateless. We don't have rights. We don't belong. The sense of belonging, that irks me. So let me just say, being an American now and claiming I am American, nobody can take that away from me right now. And that feels so good. That feels so, so good. I'm still Palestinian at heart. My culture is still Palestinian. My Arabic is still Palestinian. My music is all over the place. But other than that, nobody will take that from me. And that success, it took me years to start saying, you know what? Yeah, I did it. I did it, and I'm proud of it. That sense of being proud, of accomplishment, even that was taken from us as Palestinians. I haven't even touched on what Israel was doing. I'm talking about how Arab countries treated us as true Palestinian refugees, which is yet another double standard that bothers me. You read the media and everything that's going on that happened in the last few years, and Arab countries are speaking on behalf of Palestinians. But then look at the way that Palestinians are actually treated in their own region. The fact that they don't let them in. With the recent events and everything going on with Gaza, when I would see somebody from the Egyptian government speaking, or the Qatari government speaking, or which government, whatever, Jordan, oh, let's not get into Jordan. Jordan speaking about that, I would actually stand there and yell at the television to the point that my son and my husband, they see me coming with the news on, they're like, quick, turn it off. It got that bad. So back to graduated Kuwait University, 1988. So what has been going back then in the 80s in Kuwait, a little history lesson, which kind of ties a little bit into the events that are going on right now with Iran, 1983. Does anybody remember anybody in that region back then? Yeah, 1983. Iran's influence in the region percolates, right? I didn't know what was going on, wasn't into politics, didn't watch the news. I was just so focused on what my parents told me to study, math and science. That's why I'm still AI, cybersecurity, that still carries on. I was in school, remember that very well. And our school, it was the British school, our school was 2 blocks away from the French embassy. And at 11:05 on a Tuesday morning, huge explosion. The glass shatters in our classroom. We have no idea what goes on. And I give credit to our British teachers. They had trained us on fire drills, which at the time in Kuwait, nobody did fire drills. But all of a sudden, the alarm goes off. Everybody we evacuate the building, and we're in an area kind of like the parking lot, away from any buildings. Kuwait is a tiny, tiny country. So that explosion started. We had no idea what's going on. We're standing outside in the middle of the heat in Kuwait, and we hear other explosions going off. And it was the Eman movement at the time, which is the predecessor of Hezbollah right now, which is Iranian-backed, that they bombed the airport, the American embassy. Our American embassy was bombed. We lost 5 people then. The British embassy, that attempt failed. They were able to stop them at the gate. Power, oil, and water. All within such a coordinated terrorist attack, all within 15 minutes of each other. So if you imagine a place smaller than the state of Delaware, where all these are going off of all these vital locations, it shook us. It shook everybody. It shook the whole country. We had no idea what was going on. But I remember that moment very well, because it was the first time that I understood what a terrorist attack is. And the instability and the fear of how and I don't want to tear up, but how all my friends, we didn't have cell phones. Everybody's trying to run to a phone somewhere in the office, in the administrative office, because they knew father worked at the airport, sister worked at an oil company, a brother worked at the British embassy, husband worked at the French embassy. That chaos, that fear was so real, and I still remember it. So after that, the world, at least for me, it added yet another layer of uncertainty. And there were more geopolitics going on, but this one, it was directed at the Gulf countries. It was it was the Shiite Muslim, Shiite Sunni, conflict that was going on, Iran's influence, wanted to its influence in the region. So since then, every single year, there was a huge terrorist attack going on in the country. 1988, the year I graduated from Kuwait University, the longest hijack of history, in history, of Kuwait Airways. We would watch this plane day and night, couldn't sleep. We're watching that plane. They hijacked a Kuwait airline, and I think they took it to Cyprus. It was really horrible watching some of the stuff because they would throw passengers from the plane on the tarmac. But we would just wait there for something to happen. And it was 17 days. 17 days. The assassination attempt on the Emir of Kuwait. And it happened, I think, 87. And where they blocked the Emir motorcade, I was at Kuwait University at the time, was like the highway was like, I don't know, like it was right off the exit that I would take to go to university was where that assassination happened. So we knew at the time, it became very real. The place that I grew up in that I thought was so safe, away from a lot of the conflict that's going on back within the occupied territories in Israel and Gaza, that felt far removed. But even though we didn't have rights growing up in a different part of the world, but we knew that was there, people would react to it. They would have demonstrations in the street, but Kuwait was pretty good as a government of trying to absorb people's anger and what was going on with the Arab-Israeli conflict until Kuwait started having its own issues. And we knew at the time that Kuwait was, 3 countries had claims to Kuwait. Iran, Iraq, actually even Saudi Arabia. When I was growing up, Saudi Arabia, there's a certain area in the border, the Khafij, where there's a lot of oil wells there. It was kind of like Kuwait and Saudi would go back and forth on that. But they got to a good agreement where it's a joint region. But so we knew the whole threat with Iran. We knew the Iraqi-Iranian war that started in 1980. And who was Kuwait supporting at the time? Iraq. They were giving money to Iraq. Kuwait had money. And that's how they could support. Because they felt that Saddam, at the time, was protecting Kuwait from everything that Iran wanted. All their claims of Kuwait, Saddam kept them at bay, kept the Iranians at bay. Long war, 8 years. The war ends. Kuwait celebrates, gives us 3 days off. Who doesn't want 3 days off? Unannounced, 3 days off to celebrate the end of the war with the claims back then that Iraq won the war. I don't know, now back here in the States, I don't know anybody won. I think they just stopped. But then that was 88. I start working at Kuwait University. I get a job as a research assistant. Life is good in the dean's office. And it was an amazing project because it was about transforming our business school, where I went to business school because I got my degree from Kuwait University, business school, to make it more like US business schools. So excited. Great project. We would invite professors from key universities here, from Harvard, to come talk to us, to see how do we become more like an American business school than what we had back then. Transformational effort. Got to meet all these amazing professors, research assistants, that I was so determined, one day I need to get my master's. But then it's like, how? I'm Palestinian. Nobody's going to let me in. I mean, we talk here a lot. A definition, people say travel ban. Travel bans aren't new. Travel bans, I had a travel ban on me from every Arab country, every Western country back in the 70s. Because people don't know what to do with us. Nobody claims us. We know now if an American citizen, and this is what happened when I was at AFRICOM, does something, the whole US government overseas, the whole US government stands behind them, right? But as a Palestinian, nobody wants you. It's like, go. But this is why they don't let you in their country. So So I wasn't able, so this is the whole thing. I wasn't able to go study in Egypt, in the US, in Australia, in France, you name it. We weren't able to go there. So that put the whole thing of like, I do want to get my master's. I do want to further my education. Great project. That gets disrupted by what? 1990. Iraqi invasion of Kuwait. Complete surprise. I think controlling media controlling news is a lot more difficult now with streaming, with online, with the internet. Everybody has an opinion. But back then, we had two television stations. And they were definitely monitored by the government. We had newspapers. But again, there was censorship. So when Kuwait was invaded, it became a complete surprise. It was a complete surprise. We had no idea that Saddam had been threatening, that he had been massing his troops at the Kuwaiti border for 2 weeks before he invaded. Interesting story. This is how much it took us by surprise. Is my dad had to go to Egypt, and he had been working. We got special permissions to get him to go to Egypt because his sister was sick. And she had been in Egypt for years, but he wanted to go see her. So after working on his visa with special permissions for like 4 months, he leaves August 1st at night to go to Egypt, see his sister who was ailing. It was the first time I was on my way to the airport to go be with my dad because his sister and my mom was staying with my other two sisters in Kuwait. So go to the airport in the morning, August 2nd. We wake up and we hear, it was very early morning, we hear these fighter jets, we hear these bombings, and we think there are skirmishes at the border or the military, some kind of military exercise. I get a call from a friend of mine in Canada. She was a teacher in Kuwait and had just left, she's Canadian, to go back to Canada earlier that summer. And she's like, are you guys okay? Do you have water? We're seeing it here all over the news that Saddam is going to invade Kuwait. And I'm like, you're out of your mind. There's nothing going on. It's like life is good. Little did I know that the rest of the world knew what was going on and we didn't. But that's censorship, right? That's controlling the message. So go to the airport. We see huge trucks with soldiers on them. And I think they're Kuwaiti soldiers. And I'm like, my mom is taking me to the airport, and I'm like, Mom, we need to say a prayer for them. I mean, if Iraq is really invading or they're massing their troops, like Barbara, my friend, said earlier this morning, they need all the help they can get. There's no way we can stand up to Iraq. So lo and behold, they were Iraqi soldiers. So they invaded 2 o'clock in the morning. By 4 o'clock, they had captured Kuwait City. We were on our way to the airport. We look in the distance. When we go, you know, like every airport, you have the departure ramp to go to drop off people leaving. There was a car with 2 Kuwaiti guys standing there, like blocking the ramp. And they're like, go home, go home. And I'm like, I have a flight to catch. And then we look in the distance, and the airport is being bombed. And they're like, we are attacked. We're being attacked. Turn your radio on. Go home and stay safe. Turn around, turn the radio on to see what's going on. And it was a plea from the announcers that we have been attacked. This is nothing that's approved by the Kuwaiti government, because when the Iraqis first came, they said, oh, we're here in response to the Kuwaiti resistance because they want to overthrow the royal family, the Sabah family. So the radio announcers were saying, don't believe this, don't believe this. And all of a sudden, this radio announcer goes dead. And we knew that the Iraqis got into that. Go home, turn the TV on, same message, don't believe what you're hearing. They're coming, Iraqis are here, this is an invasion, this is not an uprising. And then all of a sudden, television announcer, the whole thing goes, this white noise. And we knew at that point that the country was gone. So, no place for us to go, refugees. A month into it, Unfortunately, my uncle, who came to Kuwait with my dad, he worked in the cancer center in Kuwait, state-of-the-art cancer center. They continued to work as the medical facilities under Iraqi occupation. The whole country has shut down. Iraqis start taking a lot of the stuff, looting a lot of the capabilities out of Kuwait City into Iraq. My uncle goes to work one day. There are Iraqi soldiers all over the place. They start taking some of the cancer treatment over to up north to Iraq. My husband said, "This is for cancer patients." There was basically all borders were closed. Nothing was coming in and out of Kuwait. And he basically said, if you take this, people will die right away. Because medication wasn't coming in. Next day he goes in, he's arrested with 4 crimes against Saddam himself because he said no. So he was, for about 2-3 weeks, we had no idea where he was. We kept on hearing horror stories about what the Iraqis were doing, picking people up, torturing, abusing, killing, throwing bodies in front of people's homes. It was a very, unsettling. It's a very scary time when you don't know what is really going on. My uncle makes it out. But then they let him out and they told him they're going to watch him because they don't trust him. So he tries to run away. Basically takes his kid, his daughter, and family and makes it through the Iraqi border and is at the border with Jordan. And Jordan says, you're Palestinian. You're not allowed in. And he stays in the desert with his family in a tiny car for 4 months. 4 months. He finally makes all the wasta, and it's who you know. And he's like, well, the war, everything going on. He finally makes it into Jordan. And then they said, you only have 1 week in Jordan before you go to Egypt. Because similarly, my uncle, just like my dad, married an Egyptian. So his wife is 100% Egyptian. His kid's mother, 100% Egyptian. And similarly, they're treated as terrorists because nobody wanted them. Stays in Jordan, overstays his visa, finally makes it into Egypt, and overstays his visa in Egypt because they only gave him 2 days, and we end up losing him with all the stress. And all he did was trying to protect his family. Similarly, my dad says, Saddam is threatening chemical weapons. He says, if anything happens, if George Bush liberates Kuwait, the Allies all liberate Kuwait, he's like, we have shelters in the hospital. My dad continued to work in the hospital. I can hide in that shelter. I don't know about you guys. And again, that's the thing where everybody's trying to protect their family and you just don't know. So people start spreading the news. It's like, bring coal, dump it in water, bucket of water, put a wet cloth around it. If you see anything orange or anything yellow, start breathing through it. That was our gas mask, right? And we did find coal. I don't know how we did. There was coal in the country. I don't know. But then my dad said, it's better for you to go, if there is a place, since your mom is Egyptian, I'm telling my mom, maybe you can go and plea to keep the girls safe with the Egyptian government. So we go on this, took a risk. It was before Christmas. And we take a bus from Kuwait all the way up north through Iraq to Jordan. Jordan sees us and says, you guys need to talk to the intelligence part of Jordan because you're terrorists, you're Palestinians, we don't want you in. There's a difference between the Palestinians from the West Bank who were given Jordanian passports and they're treated as Jordanian citizens versus the ones who are from the Gaza Strip and treated as refugees. They were nicer to us. They gave us 3 days to leave the country. And they said, we're going to be following you until you guys leave, until you get on a plane and go to Egypt. So we do that. We get on a plane, go to Egypt, and we were arrested by the Egyptians. It was my younger sister and I, and we were put in a detention center. Broke my mom's heart. She's like, I'm Egyptian. You know what they told her? They said, welcome back to your country. You come from a war zone. Go to your family. But those Palestinian terrorists need to stay in the detention center. My mom lost it. Lost it. And she's like, I stay where my daughters are. But now, as an American, I'm like, the nerve. I'm like, how, from a human perspective, who does that to their own citizen? Forget us. This is an Egyptian citizen who's a mother. And you're telling a mother who's running away from a war zone to trash her kids. How dare they? And why? Because that's the life of a Palestinian. That's the life of a Palestinian. We turn around, and I'm like, we made a decision. I remember having this very tough conversation with Mom, because we were in that detention center for a few days, and then they let us stay in the transit lounge. And then I was like, we'll go back to Kuwait and die. I'd rather risk the chemical weapon, where we all die together as a family, than being treated this way. And sure enough, we went back. Going back, took a plane from Cairo airport to Jordan. And then the Jordanians stop us and say, you can't come into Jordan, you're Palestinians. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want to go back to Kuwait and die. Can you just, and they would actually, Jordan would let my mom in because she's Egyptian. But at least they were respectful. On a human level, they still had a bit of a heart. The Egyptians were brutal. Brutal. The abuse, the swearing. I was in my early 20s. And like, and why? Like, what do you have against me? Other than the fact that I'm Palestinian. In the same day, watch the news while we were in the detention center. Hosni Mubarak stands up and we are all for the Palestinians. I'm like, really? Really, Egypt? But it's all narrative, because it's what serves their own interests versus the people who are suffering through it. It starts getting better. Please, I don't want it to be so deep, so heavy right now. It does get better, I promise. Go back to Kuwait. The Jordanians finally do the same thing. We're going to follow you until you get to the border with Iraq, and off you go. So we do that. They let us out. We take a bus close to the Alia airport, and we go all the way across the border to the Iraqi border. And we go there with the Iraqi borders. They're like, oh, you're from Kuwait. It's the 21st province. Off you go. You're more than welcome. And I remember being in that bus, driving from the Iraqi border all the way down to Kuwait. It was raining, and it's very unheard of to rain in that time of year. And we had to do it before the deadline that George Bush had given Saddam to leave Kuwait. So we get out. I remember seeing a rainbow. I do. I've never seen a rainbow in my life. It doesn't rain that much in Kuwait. It's a desert. And it was such a sign of hope. I don't know what it was in that moment, but I remember it so clearly. It felt, even if we were going to go die, the war was going to start, that it just felt that, yeah, nobody's telling me I don't belong and I'm a terrorist. It felt actually good to be driving back into a war zone. And we knew the war was going to start. We got there, I think maybe 5 days before the war, when the air invasion or the air liberation campaign started. When that started, we get back there, good night's sleep. I remember that. And then we lose power because Saddam, so we end up losing power and water for like 3 months. Because when Saddam knew that he was going to leave and the Allied forces are going to, he started the scorched earth policy, where he started burning oil wells, and it would get pitch black when the wind was blowing over the city, pitch black at 10 o'clock in the morning. And we had oil drops, this is so funny, condensing on our shirts. I mean, we were breathing oil, and Kuwaiti oil is very thick. It's really good oil. And we lost power, and then liberation happened. And we thought, wow, we're done. All our pains are over. The Kuwaitis come back with a vengeance. Rightly so. To be honest, I understand where they're coming from. What was the problem for the Palestinians? Yasser Arafat supported Saddam. So who did they take their anger on? Palestinians. Palestinians were arrested, called collaborators with the Iraqis. We couldn't travel in the country. Thank goodness that my mom has a ID that says she's Egyptian. She was gold, because Hosni Mubarak, just narrative. It's like, yeah, we're with Kuwait. Again, it's all narrative. So she was able to go get us food. My dad had a letter from the hospital that he's working at a hospital, and they kind of endorse him, and he has to go do his job and rebuild the hospital after the destruction from the Iraqis. But still, we would get harassed at checkpoints. There were so many checkpoints. It was martial law at the point because everything was really bad. Like, you didn't know who was good, who was bad. American troops come in, different story. Treat everybody with respect. I remember my introduction to M&Ms. Who doesn't like that? They liberated Kuwait and got us M&Ms. I did not know what M&Ms were. Because what is the thing? It melts in your mouth, not your hand, because of the heat, right? And then they gave us bottled water when we didn't have water. I got introduced to MREs because we didn't have food. And you know what? Not a single one of them, these are American troops at checkpoints, asked me if I was Palestinian. They didn't care. And I really want us to be proud of that. I know we have a lot of issues. I know we do internally. And that's part of our strength, is we're able to talk about it. But that, to me, was like, oh my gosh, I'm treated as a human. I'm given water. I'm introduced to M&Ms. I'm eating the same thing that an elite military is eating. I'm eating MREs. Not that fancy, but they were good for us, right? And then we're cleaning up the church, because our church, we have like one church, one Protestant church, which is the one we went to. And the Iraqis had settled there because it's on a tiny hill. It's a bump in the road. They call it a hill in Kuwait. Kuwait is so flat. It's like a bump in the road. It's a speed bump. But they stayed there. It's on the water. They thought the attack was going to come from the Gulf, the marine attack, and then we went in through the desert. So we were there cleaning the church, and somebody comes up from the State Department, says, do you want a job with the American Embassy? We need local hires who speak the language, who can help us stand up the embassy. Because the embassy with the folks who were hostages back then, or not hostages, well, they were guests of Saddam. Some were guests of Saddam, and some stayed on the embassy compound. But they ended up destroying a lot of the paperwork. A lot of the paperwork that, a lot of you are State Department, you need that to stand that infrastructure with the foreign ministry in Kuwait. But they need somebody to speak the language. And I'm like, sure, I'll take that job. And it just happened that same day in the morning, I got a call, because I used to work at Kuwait University before the invasion. I got a call from Kuwait University that they wanted to rebuild. They're like, can you come back to work? And I'm like, great, yes, I'll have my job back. And they're like, wait, you're Palestinian. I said, I am. They're like, you're fired. But God works in mysterious ways. I didn't even have time to be sad about it before the job at the American Embassy came through. It was amazing. That changed my entire life. So I ended up working at the American Embassy, treated with respect. When the Kuwaitis came back, that whole thing against the Palestinians lasted for a long time. When they came back, I couldn't come to the embassy. I couldn't drive. There were threats of harassment by soldiers. We were told we were going to be thrown at the border. And because, you tell a Palestinian they're going to be thrown at the border, you know you will be at the border because no country is going to take you in. So I remember at that time calling our admin officer, who I'm still in touch with, Wayne Loxton. I said, I can't come. I can't come to work. They'll arrest me. His response was, let me ask you first, do you guys have food and water in your house? And I'm like, my mom is able to get us food. He's like, it doesn't matter. Since you and your family can't travel freely, we're sending you food. And I'm going to send you a driver and a diplomatic license plate car saying U.S. Embassy, and let them stop you. Do you know what that meant to me? Do you see the contrast in treatment? I couldn't believe it. I really thought he was bluffing. And I'm like, are you serious? And my English wasn't that good back then. It was good enough, but not with the American dialect. I spoke more of the English, the British English, but anyway. But sure enough, he did what he said until it was safe enough to travel and to drive by ourselves. Long story short, I meet my husband at the embassy in Kuwait. He was a diplomat. He tried to impress me with his Arabic. He spoke Arabic. I thought he was the most arrogant human I've seen on the face of the earth. He's from Portland, Oregon. Anybody? Portland, Oregon? Yay! Nicest people. Oh my gosh. He gets such bad jet lag. He still does. And I laugh at it now. But he comes in, being flown in from Oregon to Kuwait, long trip, completely a zombie with jet lag. And I'm trying to be friendly. Welcome. Let me take your passport, process your visa. And he just wouldn't have it. And I thought he was just being arrogant. Long story short, fall in love, get married, and here I am. And I know I'm over time, but I'm so sorry I went on too long.
Oh, you did not. And you brought it to the perfect close, because there's another hour we need to get you from there.
Yes,
to all
after
the
I
other
come to
things
the
you've
States.
done. But I
That's
think we would
interesting-
like to share some questions with you. So I'll be looking for a hand. Pierre may help with the microphone. Carl, feel free. Could you work that side of the room?
I apologize, John. I
No,
really
no.
went over.
No.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your discussion with us.
Absolutely.
In 2018, I was. Thank you. This is a lot better. In 2018, I was working with the State Department. We were in Jordan. My interpreter was Palestinian. Was she going through still in 2018 what you were going through? Okay, so
it depends. So this is what happens when a country is invaded, and I'm going to stay away from. I mean, it's similar to what happened to us when Kuwait was invaded. Everybody tries to go to whatever country they can go and settle in, and that's exactly what happened to Palestinians. Some who were in the West Bank, they are treated as Jordanian citizens. Right? So she probably has the right to own, live there, and she has a Jordanian passport and is treated as a citizen with all the rights she gets as a Jordanian. Even Palestinian Jordanians, I think there are only certain roles in the Jordanian government they can't serve in, but they're treated as Jordanian citizens. They still attach to their Palestinian identity, but it's completely different for them. This is what we've been going through, like to have a travel document saying refugee is more from the Palestinians who are in the Gaza Strip. Yeah, I wish we were Jordanians, but hey, builds character, right? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. What happens to the rest of your family? And were they allowed to stay, or did they get out or go back to Palestine? Or
Yeah, so we couldn't go back to Palestine, unfortunately. We were never. That's another part of the thing. We were never allowed, because we were, again, my dad being from the Gaza Strip, we were never allowed back in Israel or Palestine. That's the thing. Is like, you're out of a certain place, don't come back. That's exactly it. So when I got married, I moved to the States, and again, something that I really, really appreciate about the U.S., I brought my mom in. My mom was still working. My dad was there. So my parents are here. And my older sister got a scholarship. She was doing pathology, master's in pathology. She got, again, a scholarship from University in Boston to stay in the States and further her education. And my younger sister followed my path, married an American, and is here in the States. Yes, so we're all here. Yeah. Thank you.
Hello. That was so interesting. We know nothing about that, so we're just astounded. But I wanted to ask you, you kept saying that you were going on a bus from point A to point B to
Yes.
point C and so on. Where did you get the money to do that?
Oh, great question. So, and this is yet another, because there's so much that happened. So when Iraq invaded Kuwait, they devalued, and there were economic sanctions. So the Kuwaiti currency, everybody dealt with cash, right? But we had cash at hand, right? So they froze the money in the bank, because all accounts were frozen. Iraqis froze the money in the bank, and they said, if you are to live, you have to get Iraqi money. And we didn't. We didn't have, who had Iraqi money, right? So it's another story. So it just happened because I was working at Kuwait University at the time when Iraq took over the country, they came and said, we're gonna open up the country back again, because we stopped working. They said, we're gonna open up the country back again, so report back to your work, and we're gonna give you a month's salary. So sure enough, I go back to Kuwait University, and they gave me a month's salary in Iraqi dinars. And that's what took us into the bus trip. At the same time, my dad started working at the hospital again. He went back to work, and they were paying him an Iraqi salary, which is interesting, because when the Kuwaitis came back, they said, you Palestinians traded with Iraqi money, you're traitors. The same rule didn't apply to Kuwaitis who got Iraqi money. But that's war. That's war in politics. Great question. Great question. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Here, go ahead.
Well, you've had quite a journey that you've described, but could you describe your journey briefly from when you were working at the American Embassy in Kuwait to going to CIA?
Yes. I'll give you high level so that you invite me back in. Girl meets boy, fall in love with my husband that I thought was so arrogant, deeply in love with him. We get married, move to the States. I decided, remember the whole thing about education, the whole thing working with American professors, that I wanted my MBA. I wanted my MBA. Go to University of Maryland, decided to get not only one master's, two while I'm at it. So I get 2 masters, have my son Joshua, and then started working at Booz Allen when 9/11 happened. And when 9/11 happened, I'm sure everybody has a lot of stories about 9/11. It hit so bad because I've lived with these terrorists. I've seen terrorism firsthand. And I was so determined not to have kids in the Middle East because I saw the pain on my mom's face trying to protect us. I saw what my dad had to go through. And I was like, oh no, they're not gonna mess with Josh's future. And I became mama bear, right? And so when US government, the FBI, CIA, they were asking for Arabic speakers, I stepped up. And I had just gotten my citizenship. And I said, I can do it, I can help. I want to protect this country. I was so proud. Even the story about when I got my citizenship, oh my gosh, what a day. What a day. To be holding my son. He was 6 months old. But I knew nobody's going to take him away from me because we have different citizenships. That day was amazing. And so I got I got polygraphed by 3 agencies, NSA, FBI, and CIA in 1 week, and I hated life. And I'm like, I love my country, I'm here to protect, but a polygraph and three polygraphs is a bit much. And the CIA came through in record time to get me my clearances in 6 months. And again, I go back to, they gave me an amazing, I mean, now I know in the private sector how much government doesn't pay, but they gave me a good offer. They made me a good offer. And they treated me as an asset that could help, and not as a Palestinian refugee. And I love my agency. I call it my agency. They treated me as, I never felt any kind of this discrimination. I was able to bring all of me into the agency, every experience. They're like, if you can help, please help. This is it. So that's a snapshot. Does this help?
The decision to put American troops into Kuwait is a big part of your story. You noted it. I'd just like to add that the President of the United States that decided to launch Exercise Desert Storm to clearing out the Iraqis was George H.W. Bush.
Yes.
I remember hearing an interview with a journalist talking to him, and the question put to him was, Mr. President, are you ready to deal with this crisis? And he said, I've been preparing for a crisis like this all my life. And he did it.
Yes.
And that's where the link comes in between America and your Palestinian story.
Absolutely.
That's what I was waiting to hear.
Yes. And you know what? Not thinking Republican, Democrat, my first introduction to American president is President H.W. Because when we were in that situation, we were holding on to every word he's saying because he's going to liberate Kuwait. And I'm very honored. He's one of my favorite. This was my introduction to the U.S. And how he ensured very low civilian casualties. I owe him my life and my family's life. Because war is awful. I mean, it's really awful. We've heard, we all know, but for how he handled it and how he was prepared and how that true American spirit of leave civilians alone, that it translated all the way down to the troops was phenomenal. Like, what great leadership. And actually, interesting you say that. A good mentor of mine from the agency is now the dean of the George H.W. Bush of government. And last year, I was there, and I shared the same story, giving tribute to President Bush for what he did. I'm still plugged into with that school. I love being there. I went 3 times last year because I can feel his spirit. And they just added, if those who haven't been to his library, a whole section on the war in Kuwait. I mean, I just go there and sit and just take it all in. Thank you for saying that.
This has been an amazing story. It's a dual story. It's a Palestinian story, and it's an American story.
100%.
But the Palestinian story is, I think, what you have really given us. The struggle, the chaos, the turbulence, the risks that you and many others have been through is a story that needs to be told and retold and understood. Well, to be a Palestinian today cannot be easy. But what you've done for us is to give us the background, and I think we all appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. You guys are awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.